This is a scene I've been meaning to paint for ages. It's in the city of Derby. It's called Frygate. And when I say I've been meaning to paint it ages, I mean at least 20 years, maybe more, maybe 30 years. And it's going to be a painting all about the light. So let's get into it. I've chose Artrage for this one, and I don't mean Artrage on the iPad. I'm actually working on the PC, so this is Artrage 5. I've loaded my custom palette of oil brushes, but first of all I'm using the roller, so that isn't actually in my toolbox. So I've selected it from the actual brush types, and I'm just really into using the roller for sort of creating the basic shapes of the painting before I really get started. So I thought, I've never ever used it on Artrage 5, so I thought I would give it a go and see what happens. The first thing I noticed is that when you put something like that pale blue mauve colour that I've used for the sky, when I chose the sort of browny light brown colour and it mixed in with the blue, it came out green, which wasn't unpleasant, but a little bit surprised. But if I took I noticed later on that if I took the thinners down, it didn't do that. It was caused less of a mix, as it were. So anyway, I'm working on one layer to start with, and I've now gone on to just the regular oil brush, really, and I'm trying to get these sort of shadows in straight away. They're not as dark as the finished painting is going to be, but I wanted to get them in to dominate the painting and set the whole scene straight away. So I'm not sort of messing about. And there we go. I go in with this random dark area on that tree trunk, and then forget about it and come over to the right hand side of the painting, and I start working on the buildings on the right. So I don't know if I think I may have in my head I put that dark colour on to help establish the tones, and then it was like I just completely forgot about it. And it wasn't sort of quite a bit later on in the painting I thought, oh, I've got this big dark patch on here and not done anything with it. So I didn't consciously put it on to sort of set the tones, but maybe I had done that without thinking, and then just left it. So I go on to the buildings on the right, and I'm not fussing about detail or trying to draw all of those architectural details accurately or even semi-accurately. It's almost as if I want this sort of abstract look to the thing where you can imagine there's windows there, but you don't actually see them. I've not painted them in, so I'm all about looking at the shadows and painting them in, really, and the highlights as well, and sort of putting the odd stroke in for the windows. And then you see if this weird tiny little bit of detail at the gable end of that building, which I put in, which I thought was odd considering I'm not bothered with the detail of anything else whatsoever, but for some reason I felt that bit needed to go in. And here I thought, oh, I've got this tree going off, let's start working on that again now. So once I'd finished the buildings on the right, I came back to that tree, and I sort of adjusting the colour all the time. And also, once I'd got the tree established, I went back in and started to think I need to get the distance in first before I sort of start working on the tree. So I left it again, and then the bus that's in the photograph, I don't know how clearly you can see it, it's actually a lot more closer, and a lot more it's closer, and it sort of obscures some of the bridge. But so what I did, I pushed the bus further back so it's sort of the other side of the bridge rather than in front of it. and I felt that was a better composition. So once I'd sort of established all that, I get back onto the tree again, and this is still all on one layer really. I'm not I haven't created any other layers, but I am varying the colour. I've gone into a sort of a blue, warm blue now. The photograph I actually took into Affinity Photo and upped the contrast quite a lot, and that helped me. I find that really useful for when I take a photograph. Just bring it into, you know, a photo editing app, and if I just adjust the contrast, it sort of helps me identify the lights and the darks much better. So I mean, you can see the sort of tree branches in the photo, the sort of top third of the photo, they're really dark. Now in the original photo it wasn't really like that, so just by adjusting the contrast of the photo, it helped me a lot when I came to do the painting. So I've now got a second layer. I haven't changed the modes or anything like that. I just felt that I needed this second layer, and I think it was because the colours were getting a bit muddy and I wanted to sort of create a new layer to keep them a little bit cleaner. The clock I painted in, and I use I'm now on the thick oil brush, by the way, and as you see I painted this in. I've sort of done this quite a neat job really, with a lot of detail, I suppose, in as much that I've actually bothered to put in every hour marking, but then I get the blending or the palette knife, the hard out smudge palette knife, and then just smudge it a bit to sort of knock back the fact that I've actually painted any detailing, because it would have looked ridiculous to have this sort of detailed clock painted on. When I mean detail, I don't mean highly detailed, but much more detailed than the rest of the painting. It would have looked peculiar, so I just softened off parts of it and scrubbed it back into the rest of the painting. This building that I'm working on now, I kind of wish almost that I got it in very quick, and I like what I'd done, and then I start messing with it a bit. You see I've got the highlights at the top of the gable end, and I kind of wish perhaps I should have left that and not done it so much. So I'm getting the traffic lights in, and sort of one of the things that was an issue was sort of making sure that the ground blends in with the buildings. They're not just sort of square on like that without any shadows. So that's something that I needed to be very much aware of. And also I've got this sort of rectangular shape going off with that sort of middle building, the one that's sort of to the right hand side with the traffic light next to it. We've just got this big rectangle, so I'm going to have to put a car. Oh, there we go, the car's going in, and I felt that just putting that car in there, that was put in for aesthetic purposes really. It is in the photo, but it's the only car that I paint in, because I felt that just broke up that rectangular shape a little bit, and just added a little bit more of interest, I suppose. And because, you know, a town without cars and people in it is going to look a bit like we've had the zombie apocalypse or something, and nobody on the streets, or there's a curfew or something like that. So if you're doing a street scene, I feel that you need to put people in it. So there's going to be some people going in here in a short while, but I'm sort of concentrating at the minute on these shadows that's being cast by the tree. So obviously the sun is over to the left and casting the shadows to the right. So I'm sort of really beefing them up, because I want them to be really, I want the sort of darks to be darks and the lights to be that sounds ridiculous. I want the darks to be, of course I want the darks to be dark, but I mean really dark. and the lights, I don't want them white, but I want, you know, a lot of contrast between those darks and lights. That's what I was trying to say. So here I've created another layer, and I've set the blend mode to multiply. I'd done that with all the shadows that I'd just put on previously, and now I've created another layer again, and I am going back over it, painting in these figures. And I felt that the sort of figure on the right needed something light on his right hand side, just to add a bit of juxtaposition, really, light against dark, a bit of contrast. So that's why I put that sort of poster in the window of the shop. Could be a poster, it could be a board, it could be anything really, couldn't it? I just put a few little highlights in there, and I signed it there, but I didn't stop. I did a little bit more painting, not too much. I just sort of worked on those shadows on the foreground, but I forgot to record it, so I'm really sorry about that. It's only about 5 minutes painting or so. So that is it. That's my painting of Frygate. I really enjoyed doing that. I've been meaning to paint it for such a long time, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, a big thumbs up as always is much appreciated, and if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, because I've got lots of videos like this and I would love to be sharing them with you. So hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.